Aethermancer is insane. The game has an amazing system which combines the beauty of monster taming and the enjoyable nail-biting nature of roguelikes. If you've been itching for some good tactical action, then Aethermancer might just be the game for you. Aethermancer just recently dropped their demo, and all I can say is that this game is awesome. The game is developed by Roguelite Games, which brought us the amazing Metroidvania Monster Sanctuary. I absolutely enjoyed my time playing the demo as it was jam-packed with content. It wasn't just a quick 30-minute look into the game, but it was an adventure where you get to experience the first 2 stages. And to be honest, I cannot wait for the game to release because Aethermancer is definitely a game to look out for. The game does have established lore. The setting of the world is called Terraste, where an event called the Massive Void Phenomenon has occurred, and you as an Aethermancer must try to close the void. You can rescue residents of the hub base called Pilgrim's Rest, and must fight your way through hordes of monsters until you reach the Old Holy City. That's most of what I gathered playing this demo, and there's this thing called the Cult of the Void, so I'm guessing there might be non-monster enemies once the game releases. Let's talk about the beginning of the game. Aethermancer sees you, the protagonist, named Sirius, or is that Sirius X, start off choosing a starter monster, either a Cherufi and a Yoton. One is an offensive type monster, and the other is a defensive tank. There are 4 total starters, however, 2 aren't in the demo. Each monster will have elements tied to them. Cherufi is a fire and earth monster, while Yoton is a water and wind monster. These 4 elements are the main elements you use in the game as energy for your attacks. As an Aethermancer, your job is to bond with these monsters and use your power to harness Aether to help these monsters reach their full potential. There are 15 total monsters you can use in the demo. It'll totally depend on your playstyle and how you manage your team. Monsters will vary in types. Some excel in healing, some excel in shielding, some excel in applying status effects on enemies, and some can deal huge damage. The game requires you to think strategically on your team composition so you don't get bodied when you go further on. Finding the right mix of offense and defense is the best way to go. I'm not gonna lie, I'm absolutely in love with the monster design. A personal favorite of mine has to be the Domovoy. It looks like a dwarf monster with a steaming hot cauldron on its back. And as a fan of Dungeon Meshi, this guy just reminds me of Senshi. Another favorite has to be Nosferatu and Mephisto. Those things just look absolutely menacing, plus Cherufi is super cool, and the ooze is giving me Final Fantasy Flan energy, which just makes me love it more. Let's talk about combat. The combat in Aethermancer is solid. Each monster you have in your party generates Aether, and this Aether generated will be used to activate your monster's special attacks. If you don't have enough Aether to use special attacks, you can resort to using basic attacks that generate Aether for you. There's a 5th type of Aether as well that you can see, which is Wild Aether. These can be used as a substitute for other Aether you are missing and can be generated via traits or monster moves. Monsters will have specific traits that they specialize in. For example, Cherufi. It has the trait Scorched Earth. Whenever Cherufi applies 1 or more burn stacks on the enemy, they break 1 poise. We'll talk about poise shortly. Monsters also have types. Cherufi is a Purge type monster. It has moves that allow you to purge or remove Aether from your enemy's pool. If done successfully, you can interrupt special moves your enemies are planning to do, resulting in them using basic attacks instead. Monsters will show what elements they are, and you can strategize around this. Enemy monsters will have things called poise. The easiest comparison I can make is the Octopath Traveler break system, where enemies have corresponding weaknesses so you can stagger them. You even have moves that hit the enemy multiple times to speed up that stagger progress. Once staggered, their moves are interrupted and they'll skip the turn. There are boss monsters at the end of a zone, and these monsters have a larger amount of poise, however, they can be staggered with any element attack. The main difference though is that these boss monsters have 2 attacks in 1 turn, so if you successfully stagger them, they still can hit you with the extra attack. Status effects are gonna be your best friend in Aethermancer. Burns, poisons, and terror are really effective going into fights. The best thing about it is that there are monsters who take advantage of having status effects on your side as well. Ooze is a great example of turning poison into its own weapon. You can weaken enemies and have them do lesser damage. You can redirect enemy attacks to your tank. You can also buff your team and increase their damage, do follow-up attacks, and even have passive regeneration. So building your team and understanding what moves they can have is a major factor in surviving a run in Aethermancer. Health is also a neat mechanic the game has. You will lose HP in roguelites or monster tamers. That's inevitable, but Aethermancer takes this to another level. There's this status effect called Corruption, where the more you take damage, the more your monsters have lesser HP across the run. Think of it like Radiation and Fallout. You will be able to get rid of corruption via items or at rest sites, which we'll talk about later. Since this is a monster taming game, you also have the ability to collect monsters. Once you stagger a monster, you have an item called a blank memento that allows you to record a monster's soul and use the monster's shrine to rebirth them. You can use it to collect all sorts of monsters, even champion monsters like the final monster at the end of the demo, making it worth trying to catch everything in a run. Monsters do level up, monsters gain worthiness after completing battles or completing field trials, and after they level up, they gain stats, further increasing their damage and effectiveness in battle. Another thing is that monsters also gain skills and traits. Skills are totally separate from worthiness. These are your randomly gained moves whenever you level up in a run, so you can RNG yourself into getting great moves or re-roll them if you don't get what you want. If you've been playing roguelikes a lot, you know that dying is inevitable, and it would feel bad if you didn't keep your monster's progress. The game has the soulbound mechanic, which allows you to bond with the monster you've captured and have it be a starter in your journey. These monsters keep their worthiness levels and will make the journey easier the more times you go. However, you still have to grind for your skills later on. Journeying in the world of Terraste is amazing. You can dash around and check the map like typical roguelikes do. However, the game gives you the ability to Void Blitz enemies. Void Blitz targets a monster and enters a battle. This targeted monster then starts the fight with less poise, making it easier to stagger them. You have to be careful though, as you are unable to run away from battles, and if a monster spots you, they'll start chasing you down until it can trigger a fight or if you get further away from it. To avoid monsters, you can use the ability Void Jump. Once you see these rifts on the high ground, you can dash at these and have a vantage point against monsters. Once you're enraged for a Void Blitz, this does 3 poise damage on the monster, and there are even monsters who like to ambush you and take you by surprise. You can also do a Void Parry, which is basically a Void Blitz, however, you wouldn't know which monsters are together with the ambusher compared to Void Blitzing in the area. Running around the zones in Terraste lets you collect gold in these things called Aether Crystals. These are your main forms of currency to trade with NPCs in Pilgrim's Rest and the rest area, and whenever you defeat monsters, they drop loot orbs which can contain either XP, monster mementos, or even items that you can equip onto your monsters. Each item will have varying rarities and effects, so you have to choose wisely which item would synergize with your monster. Lastly, if you're in a pinch, you can just run towards the end of a map and choose which room you'd like to go through and skip some of the fights, except for the boss room of course. Upon defeating the champion monster, there's a rest site where you can recover some health, remove corruption, and use a monster shrine. You can even meet NPCs across the zones, bringing them one by one to Pilgrim's Rest, where each NPC has their own special talents. NPCs in Aethermancer can range from amazing to straight up rude. You first meet Lily the Witch and she helps you with your monster affairs, from giving monster XP to adjusting traits and even soul bonding. For some Aether Crystals of course, she is your girl. Alioth is another Aethermancer tasked with studying the MVP or Massive Void phenomenon, and Alioth provides you with some perks like increased healing or more uses of the healing potion to even defying death. Just save up those Aether Crystals and you're good to go. Gustavo is a town mayor and has upgrades to the rest sites and upgrades like starting gold before you even start a run. Sir Tiberian is the NPC that gives you equipment. Sometimes he trades you equipment, sometimes he lets you choose to upgrade your current gear, sometimes you can see him at the start of the zones or even in the next area once you finish the one you're in. The merchant doesn't have a name, but they call themselves Us because it was highlighted, but who knows. The merchant will have an assortment of items for you. You can choose to purchase a monster soul, bonus XP, a consumable artifact, or equipment. The merchant can also drop some lore too, so speaking with the merchant isn't just about buying your supplies, you can also learn tidbits of information about the world in Aethermancer. There's Myrn too, who is a cook and she can give your monsters perks in exchange for the monster taking on some corruption, a small price to pay for power. Sir Tiberian, Myrn, and the merchant can also be encountered after choosing a room at the end of the stage, so you have to choose which room would benefit your run the most. In my case, Sir Tiberian and the loot orbs are my go-to rooms. The demo for Aethermancer isn't just giving you a taste of the game in its normal difficulty. Upon defeating the champion monster in the second zone, you get thrown back into Pilgrim's Rest and you now have the option to play the game in the heroic difficulty. I love roguelikes and their challenges, and for a demo to do this is going the extra mile, and I love that Moirite Games decided to do this. Aethermancer is an amazing demo, which makes me want to get the game right away as soon as it releases, and the devs confirmed that it will come out in 2025. There are so many things to look forward to, like Aethermancer classes, more monsters, and the lore behind the enemies in the Cult of the Void. I can't wait to see what the devs have in store for us. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I totally appreciate you. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to hit that like and subscribe button so I can keep pushing out more fighting game, Monster Tamer, and probably even more Pokemon and Digimon content. And yeah, I'm trying to hit 500 subs, and I need all the help I can get. I totally appreciate everyone who stuck around as well. And yeah, this has been your boy AndroidPAW, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.